Sports Talk with Playeragent3. My next guest is the general manager, associate head coach of the Raleigh Firebirds professional basketball team, Mr. Demarcus Oliver. How you doing, my man?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Man, I'm glad to have you on the show, man. I'm definitely glad to have you on the show. When I first saw your title, man, I said to myself, I was like, wow, man, this guy, he wears a lot of hats. You know,
Sure.
Talk about, first of all, talk about your basketball journey as a coach.
Oh my God. The journey has been a 16-year journey. 16 years, starting back 16 years ago with my oldest son. He's 20 now.
Okay.
When he was 4 years old. And so I think I was 22 at the time. And so I started, with the local recreation department back in Oxford, Granville County, which is my hometown.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I did that for years. I always coached and trained and developed my son. So I got into the journey. Always started as an assistant or a volunteer. And so this is what makes the journey profound, because I've seen a pattern over 16 years. I always started as a volunteer assistant coach. And the very next year, I was a sponsor and was the head coach of my own rec league team. And so I did that for 6-7 years. So when my son hit middle school as a 7th grader, the head coach brought me in as an assistant coach to help develop the team as I developed my son. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and going a little deeper into that, my mother died back in 2005 on Father's Day. Two tokens that she left with me was never dress for where you are, dress for where you're going. And so I say that because back in my rec league days, I was dressing like a professional head coach. I was dressing like I was already at the level that I desired to be on as a rec league coach. And so I was wearing shirts and ties on Saturday mornings at a local rec gym.
Right.
I was a middle school coach when back in that day, 2009, 10, 11, guys were wearing khakis and polos. Back then I was wearing suits at that day as an assistant. And so it wasn't about the moment, it was about the future. I was carrying myself like I had already was at the level that I wanted to be on. And so the very next year, after being with Northern Granville Middle School in Oxford as an assistant coach, Henderson Middle School brought me in the very next year as a head coach. And so I went there, was a head coach there, had a great season with a good group of kids. And then the very next year, Mary Potter Middle School, which is a school back in Oxford that I went to myself, brought me back in as a head coach.
Okay.
And so now I'm back in my hometown. Had a great year. Once again, good group of young kids. During those years, I started a youth AAU organization as well, in which I still run that organization as well these days. This season coming up, next spring, summer, will be 9 years straight.
Okay.
And so, I went from the rec leagues to the middle school. It always started with serving as an assistant first. And then the very next year, the promotion came. Next thing you know, I get into the high school level. Went through a little stint in high school, and then got a call to be the assistant coach at Vance Granville Community College.
Right, yeah.
And so I served under Coach Michael Woody, solid coach, man. And, by season ending, right in postseason, I got a promotion as interim head coach. Very next season, they promoted me as head coach. And so once again, it's this pattern, So I coached at Vance Granville Community College for 3 years, which was, a place that I really poured sweat, blood, and tears in. Helped a lot of young men to get into 4-year schools on 4 scholarships. Had the highest team GPA that the school has ever had. So I was making marks that could never be erased. And then that season ended. I met Wade. Yeah. And then so Wade brought me in as a assistant coach.
Okay.
And of course, history's in the making. Right. Once again, season ended. Got a promotion to go to New York as the general manager for Jamestown Jackers. 2 weeks ago, me and Wade stayed in contact, and he brings me back home base.
Right. So talking about staying with the Vance Granville job. I mean, you being a young guy coaching on the college level.
Right.
How did you feel? Being able to be a young person, on the college level, and coaching in that capacity.
It was great for me. It was a great experience. It was a part of my journey, but likewise, it was a part of the journey that a lot of young men that I had coached earlier in their middle school and high school days and through my AAU organization, at the same time of my promotion as a head coach was the same time that they were graduating high school. And so now I was put in a position to bring young men in that I had coached earlier in the years, that I had trained and developed, and give them an opportunity. And so to me, back in that day, what Vance Granville Community College was all about, because one thing I did was treated that JUCO program like it was a Division I program. And
Exactly.
So, the way that we dress, the way that we carried ourselves, the work ethic, the energy, the passion that we played with, the whole culture, I wanted to just make a stamp in JUCO basketball, because not only was it about those young men, it was about preparing them for the next level. And that's something that I always thrived in, is not coaching for where I am, but coaching for where I want to be.
Correct.
And so that's what I leave on players. Don't play for where you are, play for where you want to go. And so, when you're that 2-year JUCO guy, I want you to grind and play like you're already playing in the ding dong.
Right.
So,
right.
That's kind of, what we kind of established there with the culture.
So from Vance Granville, you mentioned something about the Jamestown Jackers, correct?
Yes.
You were the general manager, or?
Yes.
Okay. So how did that opportunity come about? Because you go from being the assistant at Vance Granville Community College to a general manager at a professional basketball team.
Yes. Well, the owner of that team kind of set eyes on me when I was on the road coaching. So, of course, when our team, when the Firebirds went to Jamestown, New York, we put up great energy. We played a great game. That energy was contagious in the gym. We had. And so their players, respected that, because, the sport is a competitive sport. So we competed in good spirits, but yet we competed. And so their players, they love my energy. The owner, apparently loved my energy as well. And so, they had an opportunity to see the Firebirds make it to the playoffs in our first year. And likewise in Albany, New York, I'm coaching that team, on the sideline, holding the jersey up. That's the 6th man. I'm the 6th man. And I was holding the number 6 jersey up, And so, we kind of gutted it out together. And that's something that a lot of teams, was missing that piece, perhaps. And so they just wanted that in Jamestown, and so that's, I was presented an opportunity to go in to Jamestown and to try to bring that culture, to establish that type of energy and passion, with the group of guys. So,
and now you're with the Raleigh Firebirds, as the general manager.
Yes.
Associate head coach. Like I said before, you wear many hats.
Yes.
Talk about your roles with the Firebirds.
With the Firebirds, I'll basically be doing, once again, what I've always been doing. Number one, I'm very thankful for the opportunity and Wade trusting me to bring me back in as a general manager. He trusts my vision. He trusts, my IQ. He trusts my relationship building abilities with the players, not only with the players, but also with the community. And so I've thrived in sales and marketing for 17 years as well. And so I have a ton of knowledge when it comes to getting out in the community, establishing brand, marketing, so on and so forth, but yet coaching, building relationships. And so my journey has prepared me for where I am, over the past 16 years.
Now, was it always your aim to be in a managerial position, on a sports team, because me personally, I think it's a breath of fresh air to see young African Americans in managerial positions, because that's something that we lack, especially in professional sports. Is that something that you took pride in?
I absolutely take pride in it. It's something that, if you had asked me 5 years ago, do I see myself where I am now? The answer would be no, as far as in a managerial position, in this position with the Raleigh Firebirds. But again, my journey has been one step at a time. Mm-hmm. Always knowing I was destined to be, just not knowing the timing and the location and the exacts. And so it was always based on one step at a time, trusting God, number one, through the journey. And every step became clearer and clearer, the closer I got to where I am. And so that's kind of what has happened.
Right. And because I think it's important for kids to see that, we as African Americans can do more than bounce a ball, can do more than hit a baseball, can do more than throw a football, and I think, what you're doing is a prime example that, we can be other things. We can be coaches, we can be general managers, we can, we can definitely be presidents. What do you say to that?
Absolutely. I will say to that, and as you were speaking, I can only hear one thing. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I've lived by over these 16 years. And that was, we have to, as a young people, we have to trust that we can be a trailblazer. We have to trust that we don't have to go down the path that's already been laid, that we can go where there is no path and create a trail. Mm-hmm. And so it's guys like myself who grew up, without a lot of the perks and single parent household, and, father was never present, and so I'll tell young men today, even in my program through mentoring, I am who I am because of what I never had. Mm-hmm. As a coach, as a father, as a leader, I had a strong mother who grounded me with a lot of foundation. And so those things will never leave me. And that's what gives me the courage and the strength to go out and set the tone, to be an example.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm. So now, as I stated earlier, you are you're the associate head coach and the general manager of the Raleigh Firebirds. For the listeners, can you talk about the Firebirds in terms of the history and where are you guys trying to go with this organization that's actually playing in the basketball league?
That's correct.
Yeah, can you talk about the Raleigh Firebirds?
Sure. So last year was our inaugural year, our very first season. And one thing that, looking back, bridging back from last year, Raleigh, of course, is known as the hoop state.
Yeah.
In North Carolina itself. And we've had a lot of great talent to come out of the hoop state. Mm-hmm. And so in the inception of the Firebirds, and playing in a very tough league, mm-hmm. the TBL league is considered to be the third division of basketball in the United States. Okay. So, you have the NBA and you have the G League, mm-hmm. and then you have the TBL. Mm-hmm. And so, to take a group of guys who has never played together and to create culture, number one. I remember our very first road trip being in Kansas City, Missouri, and Owensboro, Kentucky of last season, where we went through some struggling times, some tough times, had a ton of talent, but that talent had to get to know each other. And I remember the bus ride on the way back, an 18-hour drive. On the way back to North Carolina, that's where life began to happen with this team. This is a team that went down before we went up. And I always believed, and I always told the guys last year, that the going down is what created the foundation in the Firebirds. Mm-hmm. Humbling ourselves, going down into the dirt, the grimy, the grit. And so therefore we played that way. We played smacking the floor. We played with tenacity. We played with energy and passion. And so we took a lot of losses when the season began, but those losses girded us and prepared us for a strong postseason, because we went into postseason saying we ain't got nothing to lose. And for everything that we lost, we coming back to snatch it back. Mm-hmm. And so for this team to, if I'm not mistaken, at one point of the season, we were like 9th or 10th, like ranked 9th or 10th in the country. And then come postseason, we're the number 4 team. We got a playoff berth that only 4 teams can go into the playoffs and we're that fourth slot, that spoke of where we came from and where we want to be going in the future.
Exactly. Now, you know, one of your roles, you talk about sponsorship and branding, which is very important, you know, for the Firebirds, for a new basketball league.
Right.
What are you guys doing in the community to get the Raleigh community excited about the Firebirds? What type of things are you doing to try to, you know, expand, you know, the Raleigh Firebirds brand?
Well, since I've been back now 2 weeks, and I believe that getting away, you know, there's an old saying that if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
You heard that before.
And so with me, you know, being away for a couple of months and basically going with nothing, started from scratch, going into a desolate place where no one knows me, and it allowed me to spread my wings and be creative and fly. So it was almost like the caterpillar to butterfly. And so when I experienced that in a place where no one knew me, getting a phone call from Wade that, listen, the doors are wide open for you as a GM and associate head coach. When I crossed the state line, man, coming back to North Carolina, you know, it was like a breath of fresh air. Opportunities are endless. So some things that I began to do immediately last week, as a matter of fact, knowing some of the things that we experienced last year on the road, is to preparing a better quality for the sake of the guys who are grinding it out for us day in and day out when it comes to meals. And so the number one thing I began to do was, it's one thing to send emails and make phone calls, but it's another thing to go into businesses and present yourself and shake hands. And so I went to a lot of restaurants here in town, and I have a few more to go to create a partnership, whereas, you know, a lot of the local restaurant chains can provide a pregame and or postgame meal for our guys during our home games. Likewise, prepare a meal for our guys when we take a road trip. And so, you know, that relationship that we're building in TGI Fridays and Golden Corral, we're working on Applebee's right now, Chick-fil-A as well, to be some strong partners with us to help us feed our men. You know, secondly, you know, starting this week and next week, I'm going to go out into a lot of other businesses, car dealerships, to create partnerships whereas they can come in and market their products, and likewise they can be a support through sponsorship with us as well. So it's definitely it's a two-way thing. When it comes to the community, we're going out into the school system. Of course, we're partnering with Wade County Public Schools. I want to get into the colleges as well, because I believe that we can be the filter for a lot of the Shaws, the St. Augs, the Wake Techs, the Centrals, you know, the Carolinas, the Dukes. You know, when you got your 12, your graduates, your seniors, if they don't want to make that trip overseas, they don't get into the NBA G League or NBA, and they got families here at home, we got the platform for them to stay at home. Exactly. And, you know, so I want to create those relationships and get ourselves out there more and shake a lot of hands and be a part of a lot of, you know, things in the community to help, you know, the youth as well as, you know, a lot of the local businesses.
Well, what type of advice could you pass on to someone who wants to be in your position as a general manager? Okay, like I said, you know, the lack of African Americans in these type of positions, it's not to me, it's not a good look. I think we can do better. As a young Black African American, what advice can you pass down to someone looking to be in the position that you're in today?
I would say, and I can only speak for what has brought me where I am. Number one, always believe. Always have faith and believe. Number two, the journey is not going to be easy. Nothing is given, but every year, every single year of these 16 years that I've been doing what I'm doing has been earned. You have to be able to persevere through adversity. You gotta be able to accept rejection and allow every no to be a yes. You gotta fight for that yes, because it hasn't been an easy journey. What's been in me is what's taken me to where I am.
Right.
And so, I would say, being strong mentally, being strong spiritually, having a strong foundation, believing, being connected to the right people, to good people. Wade Harris is a great guy. Through my journey, I've met great coaches who has been mentors and just great energy around me as being a young man that's still growing. And I would say even to myself, even where I am still a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm in the presence of and in the company of, people, guys, especially young, older Black guys, who I definitely respect and look up to, I admire it. And I'm, like a sponge, and I'm humble, and I would say that definitely through the journey to a young man is to be humble, to be a sponge, and to overcome all adversities. You got to be strong, man. So.
Exactly. Now, one thing I definitely, wanted to ask you about in terms of, the guys on your roster or the guys that even come out to training camp, most of these guys, I'm sure, want to play overseas. Mm-hmm. I'm sure most of these guys want to play in the G League. I'm sure most of these guys, I'm sure all of them want to play in the NBA. How do you sell the TBL as well as the Raleigh Firebirds to these guys? How do you sell it as a program where it isn't a sense of falsehood, in terms of making it to the G League or making it to the NBA?
This league, the TBL league itself, the Raleigh Firebirds platform, is designed for those young men that seek an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so, this platform is basically the first foot in the door. When you can get out there and when you can travel all over the country and when you can be in the presence of FIBA and NBA agents, the Magnets are a group of great people, a lot of connections through them as well. Of course, they're the owners and presidents of this entire league. He has a history, of course, in the NBA himself. A lot of overseas agents are connected to every coach and GM in this league. And so it's all about getting your foot in the door. It's all about having great film. It's all about being effective and impactful in your local community. Mm-hmm. It's all about being an example and grooming themselves for the next level. I would say that's the biggest thing in this league, is that it gives our guys an opportunity to feel what it's like at the next level. The next level is national. The next level is worldwide. This level is within your local community. And so it's almost like they're saying, be faithful over a few things, mm-hmm. and you can be ruled over many things. Well, if you can show that you can be faithful to your community, if you can show that you can be a professional within this platform, if you can show that you can be respectful and have hard work ethic and respectful to coaches and staff, and be that example for the youth that's coming up in this community, and get out there and produce great film, then you are marketing yourself to be that overseas guy, that NBA G League guy. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So what would you say is the toughest part about your job?
At this stage here, the toughest part, I will say, is because we are second year, or going into our second year as a franchise, the outreach is getting the community to buy in.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To support. We depend solely on corporate sponsorship, private sponsorship. So we're not a franchise, unlike the NBA.
All right.
We're not a franchise that's sitting on $20 million, $100 million, and got cap space and can make distributions and so on and so forth. We're visionaries. We're starting from scratch. Coach Wade has implemented this great platform in his community, and I feel the best city that we can possibly have a professional basketball team. Mm-hmm. Outside of the Raleigh Firebirds, down the road you have the Greensboro Swarm.
All right.
And a little further down you have the Charlotte Hornets. And so why not us in the capital of the state? Mm-hmm. And so it's just a matter of now in our second season getting big time community sponsors and supporters to fully support us And of course, you know, we have to make our efforts. So we're not dependent on handouts. However, we do depend on support. And so the more that we're supported as an organization, as a franchise, the more that we can support these guys fulfilling their dreams and getting overseas and providing for their families. And so all the way around, it's a system that we all scratching each other's backs and helping each other's hands.
Do you feel like, you know, the NBA have a responsibility in, you know, supporting the TBL in order for this league to have some sustainability? Of course, you know, the NBA, they have the NBA G League to focus on, but do you think it's important for, you know, someone like the NBA to have some type of support for the TBL?
I agree. I would strongly agree. But in business, I understand that they want to see sustainability probably prior to them providing sustainability.
Yeah.
And so that's where our efforts as team owners, general managers, coaches, players, from year to year, continue to make strong impact in community, because that's going to spread. And when that spreads, like, you know, I'm very interested in personally going down to Greensboro next week or the week after, based upon their availability, and meet with the Greensboro Swarm president and general managers and coaches. I want to create that relationship, that partnership, not asking for anything, but just the relationship.
Exactly.
Right? Because what happens when we have a player or some guys within the Firebirds platform that deserves at least an opportunity to be looked at, then we are a phone call away. You know, and there's always a diamond in the rough at any level.
Right.
And so, you know, I take pride in creating those relationships. So that's a part of my goals for, you know, going into the new year.
So what's next for the Firebirds, for the Raleigh Firebirds?
What's next for us is we have a mini camp that's scheduled January 10th and the 11th, where we're going to utilize that mini camp to weed out, take a look at talent and kind of weed out some guys, and you know, make a strong push going into our official training camp January 22nd through the 25th.
Okay.
In preparation for our first game, 1st of February. So, you know, it's going to be a long season ahead of us, and we want to make sure that, you know, our guns are loaded.
Right.
And we have a lot of ammunition to endure a strong season.
Any thoughts on building an arena for the Firebirds? Has that come up?
That portion has not came up yet. I strongly believe that can certainly be within our future, and I think it can be within reach. What has been brought up, I would say, is, and what I can see in the future is, you know, having an opportunity to have our home games in a facility or a coliseum such as Dorton Arena, or such as, you know, Reynolds Coliseum, and kind of start taking that platform of the hoop state, you know, in that type of environment. And when we can fill those stands up and have this, not just the city, but have, you know, a tri-county or tri-city area come out and support us, if not the state, at that point, I believe that we can then begin to make plans and envision, you know, to build our own facility.
Exactly. Last thing, man, it's the last segment of the show. It's called Free Game. And basically, I just want you to give some free game. It doesn't have to be about the Firebirds. It doesn't have to be about sports. It could be about life. Just anything that's genuine and it comes from the heart. I want you to give the people some free game. You can look at the camera right here, or you can talk to me just like we're having our conversation. Free game.
So I would say, people, some free game of the day that's right off the heart, right off this present state of mind is, you know, no matter what you go through in your life, you know, I'm going to go back to something that I told my brother a little earlier. 2 of those tokens that was given to me by Carla Diane Oliver, who passed June 20th, 2005 at the age of 40. And 2 of those statements, and I'll repeat them again. In all that you go through in your life, you never look like what you go through. And of course, in this life, you know, we all can go through a lot, known and unknown, but never look like what you go through. You keep your head up, you lift your chest up, and you walk it out. The other thing is never dress for where you are, dress for where you're going in your life. And no matter what you're going through, you know, times have been hard. 2019 has been a very tough year for many. But no matter what you're going through, you wake up every day, you look yourself in the mirror, and you know, you create that energy in you. You create that passion, that burning desire in you to go out and attack the world. You know, you have that great attitude. You build yourself up. You self-motivate. What has made me the coach I am is the fact that I've coached myself. And so,
True.
You know, coaching ain't just coaching others. My expertise in coaching comes from coaching myself through some situations where I don't have a fan base clapping hands and building me up. And so I'm kind of radical enough to be in a room by myself and scream out and clap my hands and smack the floor. You know, I'm that guy. I'll support myself. I'll clap my own hands. I'll build myself up, and then I take it to the court. And so that's what makes that energy contagious, is because that energy is alive in you. And so that's what I would share to the people is, you know, be that self-motivator, you know, practice and building yourself up, and don't depend on being validated by anyone or anything in your life, you know, and that's my free game of the day.
Free game. Real quick, man, give everybody your social media handle.
You can follow me on Instagram at Coach D Oliver. That's Coach, the letter D as in dog, Oliver. And of course, you can also find me at Chosen One Generation _NC, which is my youth travel basketball organization as well. So that's where you can find me.
There you have it. Demarcus Oliver Sports Talk with Player Agent 3.